Kia ora, Karen, Silk, and Paul and Christian. My question really, I've got a series of questions mainly around sort of economic activity and GDP. Is the decision to reduce interest rates a sign of strength or weakness in the economy, given that interest rates have fallen 150 basis points recently? Is that because the economy has gotten a lot weaker or for some other reason?
So the ability for us to continue to lower interest rates reflects a few things. It reflects, firstly, that headline inflation has moved back into the target band in the September quarter. That is a response of both a decline in import prices, so tradable inflation coming down. It's also a reflection that domestic inflation has fallen through that period as well. Looking forward, it also reflects that GDP, what we have, it also reflects that we've got spare capacity in the economy. Which has come about as a result of restrictive monetary policy. And so that is allowing us, that is feeding into inflation and is allowing us to move on interest rates. Do you want to add anything to that, Paul?
I'd just add, I mean, it's a good thing that we're able to lower interest rates. It means that we're getting through the burst of inflation that we experienced coming out the back of COVID. We're getting on top of that. Normal service is resuming as far as the economy goes, and we're moving interest rates back to what we call neutral, getting back into that neutral zone. So it's good news.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it is welcome, but as you say, there's still, it's going to take time for that change to bed in for some people. And obviously with unemployment being higher, that's a concern that I have at front of mind. Going to GDP, because you mentioned it, but also, this is something that a lot of parties are talking about. With quarterly production GDP forecasts of December this year being lower than what they were in June, predicted in June 23, where do you believe that short-term engine of growth for the economy is if business investment, residential investment, government investment is falling? Well, at least according to your November NPS forecast.
Yeah, so you're right that GDP, our forecasts have GDP still showing relative weakness. For that September quarter, we are forecasting an improvement starting from this current quarter. What we've seen in terms of the weakness, it's varied among sectors, and that's been reinforced in we've done 85 business visits in the past quarter, talking directly with businesses. What it reflects is that the greatest weakness we've had in those sectors that have been most impacted or are most impacted by and influenced by interest rates. As we look forward into moving into growth next year, we think those same sectors are the sectors that will reflect growth earlier as well. So we think about, when you think about that, residential investment, manufacturing and retail trade are probably the areas that were most, construction on that side of it, the most ones that were most impacted on the way down. They will be the ones that we will start to see more recovery in through that earlier part of 2025.
And it's true, like we're seeing the trough in growth about now. We're seeing growth picking up, I should say, from around now. And you're quite right. Like it's not like we're going, we're not projecting a spectacular economic boom or anything like that. We're projecting the output gap to close, and longer term, we're projecting growth in that sort of 2.5 sort of zone, a sort of pedestrian New Zealand level GDP growth rate.
So compared to, because some of your forecasts have some of our trading partners' GDP, and they're running much faster than New Zealand over the next few quarters. Can you explain why the US, the UK and Australia are seeing faster economic growth?
Or do you want to talk about productivity?
Yeah. Well, that's the main kind of driver there. I should also add our GDP numbers, like Stats NZ put out an advisory yesterday morning, saying that they're going to revise them up over the last couple of years. And, they're reasonably significant. I think it's 2% in terms of expenditure GDP and 1.3 in terms of 1.3 in terms of expenditure GDP and 2% in terms of production GDP. But it's still, it's true. We have not had a strong period of growth. Growth has been at best sideways over the last couple of years. And if you compare that to the likes of the United States, that's probably the sort of poster child for getting inflation down in a high growth environment. And the difference there is productivity. Productivity is effectively the speed limit for the economy, because we've got relatively weak productivity growth compared to our peer international economies. It means that actual growth has had to be slower than in those other economies to get excess productive capacity into our economy, which has been necessary to bring down that domestic inflation pressures that Karen was talking about.
And sorry, Mr. Chair, one last one, if that's okay.
Cool. Yep.
So speaking to the US, do you see any key risks to the economy from the new US administration, and any risks to inflation forecasts as a consequence?
Look, certainly that was one of discussion for the Monetary Policy Committee, just thinking more broadly about global issues in the medium term, potential impacts of geopolitical tensions that can include policy changes and as well as escalation of warfare in both the Middle East and Ukraine and Russia. The committee certainly that creates uncertainty for us moving forward, and it can have an impact on both inflation and growth. Certainly from a global perspective, it probably has a net inflationary impact at a global level, and a potentially negative impact on growth. Because the other point around that is China and some of the cyclical and structural issues that they will need to deal with. Now it can have upside and downsides, downside depending on how this plays out. Tariffs generally are not a good thing from a relative price perspective. Likewise, where tariffs are introduced, those that are producing, selling into economies that are imposing tariffs may well seek substitute markets. And so we could see effective dumping of goods as part of it as well. And so for New Zealand, we've got to think about the context of how all of those things play out. We could see disinflation on the tradable side as a consequence of cheaper goods like EVs coming into this market, as well as on the upside impacts for exports of our export and import prices from the imposition of tariffs.
I should add, if I may, like we haven't formally modelled any of the potential impacts of President-elect Trump coming back into power, but the committee's seen it more as increased relative price shifts, so more inflation volatility going forward from the things Karen was talking about, and I'll add climate change into that mix as well, weather-related events.
The thing that the committee is absolutely clear on is that the very best thing we can do is to ensure that we have inflation at or around that midpoint of our target, because that creates the best optionality for us to respond to any potential future shocks.
Which is pretty much where we've got it.
Yeah.
Okay, Catherine?
Okay, I definitely would have to say whoever is controlling the zoom on the cameras is definitely using a different model to how other committees operate, but I'm not used to the Finance and Expenditure Committee, what do you call it, Zoom operator.
No, yeah, that's a bit random.
Yeah.
I mean,
useful questions and information from Barbara Edmonds.
I mean, she always has useful questions and fucking information, and my camera's been a cunt. Sorry. I'm getting frustrated. I tried to do something different, and that's what I get for doing something different.
Oh, especially when you're live.
Yeah, she'll be right.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's a good Kiwi attitude.
Yeah. It's this live stream is about as put together right now as this government is. So.
Your aspect of it.
Wow, yeah. Hey, I mean, we had a bunch of people not turn up.
Oh yeah. I've not had a situation where I've had half the panelists just not come, and all of that came through while I was driving back from Porirua to Rongotai, the coffee cart, and because I can't take it on the motorway because my vehicle and my trailer just don't work. The combination doesn't work. So I think when you contacted me, I was going down Middleton Road. When Blake contacted me, I was going down the Keys, and when Laura contacted me, I think I just got to Rongotai. Yeah, it was just like
yeah.
It was just like, what the hell? And I'm like, I hadn't even finished driving.